What if someone could just shed their entire identity? Not just once, but again and again, crafting these elaborate new lives, basically from nothing.
It sounds like fiction, doesn't it?
It really does. Today, we're diving into the truly astonishing story of Christian Karl Gerhartsreiter. Now, that name might not ring a bell immediately, but trust me, his story, deception, aliases, a shocking truth. You won't forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission, really, for this deep dive is to explore this chameleon-like existence. He was a German impostor, ultimately a convicted murderer. We've got this stack of incredible sources.
Yeah, really detailed stuff.
And we want to unpack the most important nuggets, try to understand not just what he did, but how. How could one man sustain such huge deceptions? And what does it tell us about identity?
Yeah.
About trust?
Right. And this isn't just, your standard true crime narrative, though it definitely gets dark.
Oh, yeah.
It's really a deep dive into, well, human psychology, the art of sustained manipulation, and also the incredibly painstaking work it takes to unmask someone like that, a master fabricator.
A master.
Yeah. What's just fascinating here is the sheer audacity, the detail with which he built these false worlds, and how inevitably it all just unraveled.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. How did Christian Karl Gerhartsreiter even start down this road? He was born in Siegsdorf, Bavaria, West Germany, February 21st, 1961.
Although, characteristically, he later claimed a different birthday. Leap year day, February 29, 1960. Already tweaking reality.
Right. His parents were Simon and Irmgard. He had a brother, Alexander. But even early on, the fabrications were there. He claimed his mother was Ann Carter, the American child actress.
Which she herself denied. Back in 2007, she was very much alive and said, nope, not my son. So the seeds were planted early.
Clearly.
And those early, maybe seemingly minor deceptions, they really lay the groundwork, don't they? His arrival in the U.S. in '78 is maybe the first really clear example.
How did he manage that?
Well, he met an American couple, Elmer and Jean Kelln, who were traveling in West Germany. He then just used their names, told immigration they'd invited him to stay.
Wow. Bold.
Incredibly bold. Then he makes his way to Berlin, Connecticut, connects with the family of an author, Edward Savio.
And spins another tale.
Oh, yeah. Big one this time. Claimed he was from some wealthy German background. And it worked. The Savios took him in, thought he was a foreign exchange student, enrolled him in high school in '79.
But it didn't last.
No. Seems he wore out his welcome pretty quickly. They asked him to leave. You already see the pattern forming, right?
Absolutely. Connect, spin a story, get what you need, then move on when things get shaky.
Exactly. Leveraging people's assumptions, their goodwill.
So after the Savios, he starts heading west. Wants to be an actor in California, apparently. But he makes a stop in Milwaukee.
And a new persona emerges. Christopher Kenneth Gerhardt. He even enrolled in a class at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee under that name.
Okay, and this next bit is just remarkable. To get a green card, he marries Amy Gersel Dunkey in Madison, Wisconsin. 1981. She was only 22.
And the story he told her, just wow. He claimed if he went back to West Germany, he'd be forced into the military, sent to fight on the Russian front line in the Cold War,
A completely fabricated, dramatic reason.
Totally fabricated.
Yeah.
And the day after the wedding, he was gone, left her, headed for California.
Just like that.
Just like she didn't even file for divorce until 1992. Think about that.
So this early move, using marriage purely for citizenship, it really highlights his, I guess, ruthless opportunism.
Absolutely. It wasn't about love or partnership. It was purely transactional, calculated. Shows that lack of empathy, that willingness to exploit anyone. It's basically the blueprint for everything that comes later.
Okay, so he finally makes it to California, and this is where things take a much, much darker turn.
They really do. Our sources show he lands in San Marino, very upscale community.
Right, and he's living where?
In the guest house of a woman named Ruth Didi Sohus. And he's got another alias.
Of course he does. Who is he now?
Christopher Chichester. Apparently he took the name from a high school teacher he'd had a crush on, so now he's embedding himself in this seemingly idyllic setting, totally new identity.
But the idol doesn't last long.
No. The facade starts cracking pretty quickly. Because Chichester soon becomes a person of interest. A major person of interest for the police.
In connection with?
The disappearance of Dee Dee's son and daughter-in-law, Jonathan and Linda Sohus. This is 1985. They vanish.
And Chichester, Gerhartsreiter.
Yeah.
What does he say?
He tells people, oh, they just traveled to Europe, left suddenly. A postcard even shows up, supposedly from France, sent to the Sohus family.
Was it real?
Authorities questioned its authenticity almost immediately. It's such a classic move for a manipulator, isn't it? Create this plausible, maybe flimsy, but plausible story to cover something up.
Absolutely. And then there's this chilling detail later. 1988, he's pulled over in Greenwich, Connecticut, thousands of miles away.
Right, and what's he driving?
Jonathan Sohus' pickup truck. The missing man's truck.
But he manages to talk his way out of it, or just leave.
He leaves the area before police can really interview him properly. At that point, they didn't have concrete proof the Sohus were dead, but red flags everywhere.
Huge red flags. And this raises that big question again. How does someone like him, now linked to a disappearance, driving the missing person's car?
Right.
How does he just keep going? How does he sustain this?
Baffling.
What our sources show is instead of laying low, he just vanishes again, slips into another persona. The actual break in the Sohus case wouldn't come for years, not until May 1994.
And what happened then?
Bones were found, buried in the backyard of the old Sohus property in San Marino, believed to belong to Jonathan Sohus.
Oh, wow.
The forensic evidence was grim. Struck in the head twice, blunt object, stabbed 6 times, body cut into 3 parts.
Horrific.
And even then, the bones weren't conclusively ID'd as Jonathan Sohus until 2010. Think about that delay.
So much time passed.
Exactly. And his ability to just move on, switch identities, it shows how effectively he exploited the system back then. You know, pre-digital forensics, pre-instant communication between police departments. He could just disappear.
So after the Sohus' disappearance, even before the remains were found, he pops up again. Where this time?
Greenwich, Connecticut. Remember, he was pulled over there. He settles there for a bit, and he's got a new name.
Let me guess.
Christopher C. Crowe.
Okay. And who is Christopher C. Crowe supposed to be?
A Los Angeles television producer. He even claimed he worked on the 80s revival of Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Seriously? Did he actually?
No, but his alias matched the name of one of the actual producers on the show. It's like he's grabbing these little pieces of real lives to stitch together his fake ones.
That's so brazen.
And this phase, it really highlights his pattern, right? Employment, quick exits. He gets hired by brokerage firms like S.N. Phelps, gets fired because they find out his social security number. It belonged to David Berkowitz, the son of Sam Killer.
You cannot make this stuff up.
You really can't. Same thing happens at another firm, Nico Securities. He briefly works at Kidder, Peabody & Co., then quits suddenly. Abandons the whole Christopher Crowe persona.
Why then?
Because he found out the police were looking for Christopher Chichester again, connecting the dots back to the Sohus case. As soon as detection seems possible, poof, he's gone. New skin.
And then comes, the big one. The identity he's probably most famous or infamous for.
Clark Rockefeller. Or rather, James Frederick Mills Clark Rockefeller.
Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Doesn't it just? In 1995, he marries Sandra Boss. She's a high-flying McKinsey senior executive, very successful, very smart.
And the wedding itself was odd.
Very. It was a Quaker ceremony, which crucially had no actual legal standing. It wasn't a legal marriage.
How on earth did he convince someone like her? Someone so successful.
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It speaks volumes about his manipulative skills, his understanding of, well, human psychology, how to exploit that desire to believe.
What'd she say about it later?
She testified she initially found him charming, but over time he became incredibly emotionally abusive, controlled all the family finances, even though she was the sole earner.
He didn't work as Clark Rockefeller.
Nope. Claimed he didn't need to. He managed impressions, controlled information. He went to extreme lengths to hide his lack of real identity, like telling Boss repeatedly to file her tax returns as a single person.
To avoid scrutiny.
Exactly. Later, when her firm required a CPA, he told the accountant he was her brother, just so the single tax returns could continue. Meticulous deception.
He really lived the part, though, didn't he? Living with his wife and daughter in Cornish, New Hampshire.
Oh, yeah. Used those supposed Rockefeller ties constantly. Told people he was a wealthy Yale grad, owned a business in Canada. He even got into Boston's elite Algonquin Club.
Based on?
Nothing.
Based entirely on the name and the persona he projected. He wasn't just claiming a name, he was performing a status, embedding himself in these elite social circles.
But even that couldn't last forever. No. Even the most elaborate lies eventually show cracks. In 2006, Boss grew suspicious, hired a private investigator.
And found out.
Found out he wasn't who he claimed to be. Didn't get his real name then, but knew he wasn't a Rockefeller. The divorce was pretty quick after that.
What were the terms?
He agreed to supervise visits with their daughter. In exchange, he got an $800,000 settlement, 2 cars, her engagement ring, and even a dress, bizarrely.
He got paid to leave.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Boss moved to London with their daughter, legally changed the child's name. You can only imagine the devastation, the betrayal. His lies just wrecked lives.
And then came the climax.
Yeah.
The moment the Clark Rockefeller facade completely imploded.
Yeah.
July 27, 2008.
Right. The kidnapping. During one of those supervised visits in Boston's Back Bay,
What exactly happened?
it was apparently quite dramatic. He pushed aside the social worker supervising the visit, grabbed his daughter, jumped into an SUV waiting for him, and just sped off. The social worker actually held onto the car for a bit, got dragged before falling free. Absolutely. A warrant went out that night. Custodial, kidnapping, assault with a deadly weapon. The hunt was on.
How long was he on the run this time?
6 days. They caught him on August 2nd, 2008, in Baltimore, Maryland.
Baltimore. What was he doing there?
He'd just bought an apartment for around $450,000 under yet another alias, of course,
Which was?
Charles Chip Smith. But the FBI was closing in. They worked with a local marina owner, came up with a clever plan.
What was the plan?
They called Chip Smith, told him his catamaran, which he'd also apparently acquired, was taking on water down at the marina, lured him out of the apartment.
And arrested him.
Arrested him as soon as he stepped outside. Thankfully, the child was found inside the apartment, completely unharmed.
That's a relief. A really smart capture by the FBI.
It really was. Showed how, even for a master of disguise, when law enforcement really puts the resources in, the net closes eventually.
So, okay. He's caught. They know he's not Clark Rockefeller, not Chip Smith. How do they finally nail down his real identity after all those decades, all those names?
That's where forensic science really shines. The key moment was August 15th, 2008. The FBI lab in Quantico got involved.
Fingerprints.
Exactly. They matched his prints from the Baltimore arrest to a latent print they'd lifted from a wine glass in Boston during the search for him and his daughter.
Okay, so that connects Baltimore RCT to the Boston kidnapping suspect.
Right. But the critical link, the one that blew the whole thing open, was matching those same prints to another latent print. One developed from a document way back in his immigration file from the early 1980s.
This file from when he first came over.
The very one. And that print definitively proved that Clark Rockefeller, Chip Smith, Christopher Chichester, all these guys were actually Christian Karl Gerhartsreiter. Decades of lies collapsed by a fingerprint.
Incredible. Just incredible. So with his true identity finally confirmed, the legal system starts catching up. First, the kidnapping trial in Boston, mid-2009.
Right, and his defense. They went for an insanity defense.
On what grounds?
Claimed he genuinely believed his daughter was communicating with him telepathically. From London. Begging him to rescue her.
Wow. That's quite a claim.
It led to this fascinating battle of the experts. Defense psychiatrists diagnosed him with delusional disorder, grandiose type, this fixed belief in his own importance, talent, whatever, and narcissistic personality disorder. They pointed to alleged childhood abuse.
And the prosecution's expert?
Dr. James Chu, he saw it differently. Diagnosed a mixed personality disorder, definitely narcissistic and antisocial traits. But crucially, Dr. Chu felt Gerhartsreiter was exaggerating his symptoms, that he was perfectly capable of knowing right from wrong. He pointed to the meticulous planning of the kidnapping as evidence.
So not insane, just manipulative and disordered.
That was the prosecution's argument. It highlights how tricky these cases are, right? Assessing intent when you've got these severe personality issues in the mix.
So what did the jury decide?
They weighed it all up. June 12, 2009, the verdict came in. Guilty. Convicted of kidnapping his daughter, and 1 count of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon for ordering the driver to speed off while the social worker was hanging on.
What about the other charges?
Acquitted on a second assault charge, and acquitted on giving a false name to police, interestingly enough.
And the sentence?
4 to 5 years in state prison for the kidnapping, plus a concurrent 2 to 3 years for the assault.
But knowing his history, you just had a feeling that wasn't the end of the story.
Not by a long shot. Almost immediately, news reports started swirling. A grand jury was going to be convened in L.A. to look into the Sohus case, the cold case.
The chicken's coming home to roost.
Finally. And sure enough, March 15th, 2011, Los Angeles County prosecutors officially charged Gerhartsreiter with the murder of Jonathan Sohus.
So the murder trial, that happened in 2013, March and April.
Yes. And the evidence, well, it was largely circumstantial, but it was powerful when you put it all together.
What were the key pieces?
Jurors were apparently really swayed by two plastic book bags found buried with Sohus's remains. One was from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee.
Where Gerhartsreiter took classes as Christopher Gerhardt.
Exactly. And the other bag was from the University of Southern California.
Where he audited film classes as Christopher Chichester.
Bingo. Those bags directly linked him, through his known aliases and locations, to the burial site. Plus, jurors heard the evidence about him having Sohus's truck after the murder.
It creates this really strong chain of circumstantial evidence.
Absolutely. It shows how even small, seemingly disconnected details can build an overwhelming picture.
And the verdict.
April 10, 2013, guilty, first-degree murder, with an enhancement for using a deadly weapon.
What was the sentence for the murder?
August 15, 2013, he got the maximum, 27 years to life. It was later reduced slightly on appeal to 26 years to life, but essentially a life sentence.
Did he show any remorse? Accept responsibility?
Not at all. In fact, he fired his lawyers and represented himself at sentencing, maintained his innocence, said he believed, quote, the victim's wife killed the victim.
Blaming Linda Sohus, who is still missing.
Yes. Just classic deflection. Denial right to the very end, even facing a life sentence. It's consistent, at least.
So where is he now?
He's been moved around various California prisons. Currently, he's incarcerated at San Quentin State Prison. He becomes eligible for parole in December 2029, with a hearing scheduled for November 2028.
So we've traced this incredible, disturbing journey. What does it all mean? What do we take away from the story of Christian Karl Gerhartsreiter?
Well, it's just this extraordinary story, isn't it? A man who literally built and discarded identities like costumes.
Yeah.
Wealthy German heir, TV producer, Rockefeller, all built on lies. Lies that finally crumbled under the weight of a murder conviction.
It really is a profound testament, maybe, to the idea that truth, no matter how buried, how elaborately hidden, it often finds a way out, eventually.
It does. And his ability to sustain these fictions for decades, it's truly remarkable. It wasn't just luck. It relied on, well, audacity, sure, but also a careful study of human behavior. Knowing how to exploit vulnerabilities, people's desire to trust appearances, and just a profound, chilling disregard for consequences.
It forces you to think, doesn't it, about how much we rely on trust, on outward signs, how hard it can be to see beneath those carefully built facades.
Definitely. How well do we ever truly know anyone, especially someone determined to deceive?
So, for you, our listener, maybe think about this. We live in an age now where digital identities are so fluid, so easily faked online. What lessons can we still learn from these old-school analog deceptions of Christian Karl Gerhartsreiter? About identity itself, about trust, about how easily we can all be persuaded.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other elaborate fictions might be playing out right now, just under the surface, waiting for the truth to finally catch up?